Well, welcome everyone. I really appreciate you joining today. I'm Jody Colegrove with Quantum Techniques. And I've been doing energy medicine in this modality, which is with muscle testing for over 16 years. And I think our goal is to bring healing to chaos. My personal thing that I do is I really help women that are struggling with anxiety, depression, and digestive issues to find out the root cause. What is it that's going on that's not allowing the body to recognize what it needs to do and how to get their health and healing back. And so that's what I'm doing, is I help them discover what that is. And so today we're going to be talking about long haul COVID and answering some questions. Last time we did a interview with Steve Daniel and kind of like what he's learned, and we wanted to do another one, but he's got some new information and he says, I'm not quite ready to present it yet because he really wants to, study it and see if it kind of takes a lot of information and then like compiles it to see, okay, what's the best method or the best pathway to get at what we're trying to do. And so he does try to find that out. So that's really helpful, and that way we're not just all it's not so broad, so that helps us. So we're going to try to, he's got the information and he wants to decipher it and he wants to meet next week or next month. So looking forward to that. So I think we just want to, a lot of times I try to label this a little bit so we don't get censored. So I'm just trying to be careful of the things that I say and not kind of say those keywords that can get us to have issues. But that's not always easy to do. And so I'm going to be doing my best to answer questions, and it's hard because I tend to be just, want to talk. So, but anyway, so if you do have questions, one of the things that we can do is get on a 15-minute virtual tea to talk about if you have more questions and stuff like that. So we're going to be talking about that more. So symptoms of long haul COVID. So maybe you have experienced these or someone in your family has or friends. And so you have questions and you want to find out, okay, what more can I do? Or is this normal? And so I wanted to kind of cover those because I've received quite a few letters that I think are helpful to know what's happening. So, all right, so the first one is from a dear friend of mine that I would say doesn't quite know what I do, or if she does know I'm kind of do something with alternative, has never really researched something like that. But she's a friend that, if she says that something's happening to her, I don't not question it kind of thing. So I think this was very interesting. So I'm just going to do kind of a synopsis of what she wrote. And basically she was writing all of her friends and saying, do you have any idea what in the world is happening? Because she literally has no idea. So as I had an experience in the early morning that shook me to my core. It was like a nightmare. When I woke up, my legs were jerking and my feet were moving. My arms were frailing and my head was moving. It wasn't quite a seizure, and the movements seemed uncontrollable and seizure-like. So she said, I was able to control it enough to then kind of get up to go to the bathroom, but it got worse. So I was holding onto the walls and bumping the walls, and my feet felt like they were moving underneath me, making it even more difficult to walk. I experienced incontinence. And later, after I was able to kind of, get to the bathroom and take care of things, I took my blood pressure. My blood pressure was 161 over 100. My mind is very so now she's writing the experience. She says, it's taking me an hour to kind of write out these symptoms. My mind is very foggy. I have difficult focusing and keeping focus. I even checked my face to make sure it hadn't had a stroke because, but it doesn't look like I'd see anything that's, kind of like just one-sided or something like that. She said, is there anybody out there that knows how they can help me? And it's just, it's just so sad, and I have to say that, this is an incident that I have seen repeated over and over on Facebook and from different reports, from different modalities. And it's sad that she doesn't kind of know there's anybody else out there that are experiencing the same symptoms. And so I don't know if any of you have kind of had that, not the same experience, but know people or seen people, you know, that have had the same issue. So I think I bring that up because I realized that, you know, this person doesn't know there's other people that are having the same issues and they're just baffled. And of course she goes into, you know, I've talked to this doctor and that doctor and they don't want to talk to me anymore. They just kind of just don't answer her emails or anything. I just think that's so sad that they're not having an answer out there. Okay. So that was one scenario I wanted to go over that really explained what her symptoms were. So I wanted to go into example number 2. And this is from someone that does a lot of alternative and wrote me, and she basically said, you know, here's my experience, and if this can help other people, please, you know, let them know. Just, yeah, okay. So after my first round of COVID-19, it stayed in my system for about 3 months. I went without symptoms for the next 3 months. I began having heart and lung issues, memory loss, and the inability to remember and form words and speak. I also had balance issues and tinnitus. She said, I started doing different modalities that were somewhat helpful, and NEAT is one of them that she had done before, and they identified it as my heart with myocarditis. The ENT doctor said that it might be Mayer's disease. I've had what she's had her whole life, but it didn't realize it until COVID-19 brought out the worst. She's been doing some brain physical therapy to connect the balance with 6 weeks, and also ear physical therapy and 6 weeks of eye therapy. So, you know, just from what I do, you know, if you've got ear, eye, and issues in the face, a lot of times that is our cranial nerves. All of those are being dealt with. And balance, vagus nerve is huge with balance. And so when you have an issue, that's one of them. She said, I started to gain weight, have thyroid issues, started worsening. She said, you know, one of the things that when I work with a client, I give them, we have some liver codes, and the liver codes help to make sure the liver can start processing the toxins that it comes in contact with. But not only does it do that, but it also softens the liver, because all your anger and frustration go through the liver. And even me, if I notice that I'm getting too angry for the situation, I go, I think my liver codes are off, and sure enough, I'm right. So those are codes that we use a lot to help the body be able to detoxify. So she said, once I started doing that, then there was a huge improvement, and I started losing some weight. There's also a big emotional component with what I was dealing with. The only thing that lingered was a strain, that was strange, was my eating. There was like an anaphylactic, I'm just sorry, sometimes it's hard to say these, anaphylactic reaction, like a lingering cough, kind of like bordering on choking. You know, a lot of times people have issues with swallowing if they have any kind of anaphylactic issues. And so that throat will close under stress, and also emotional stress. Again, having memory loss, or memory issues, I should say, heart murmurs, tinnitus while sleeping, sense that my thyroid is off. And she says it kind of mimics what I endured for 2 years ago, but it was all done, and now all of a sudden, it's back. And I think that's the thing that me and Steve has found, is that there are things that you've had in your past that COVID-19 seems to bring it forward, or it's almost like that stuff was stuck in your tissue someplace, or the body has a memory of it, and it like reactivates it, saying this shouldn't be here, we don't want this anymore, so let's get it out of the body. So it's like reactivating it, and then your body needs to have a way to basically get rid of it. And so that's what it's wanting to do, and sometimes just get stuck in that loop over and over and over again. So there are lots of theories, and I think Steve and I talked about some of them. There's books, there's books written about it. There's documentaries written about it, about what's going on. One of my absolute favorite books is this one here. And sometimes it's hard because of the background, but it's called COVID Operation, put in front of my face, and it's by Pamela Popper. And what I think is fascinating about this book, it's thick, but it's an easy read because she has lots of references on each chapter, is that this book was published September 22 or 2020. That means she wrote this book starting sometime in January 2020. Everything in this book, they started talking about on TV in May of 21. But it was already written the year, a whole year before. So that was interesting to read this and then see it come out. So it's a very well written book, and she has a good platform. Kind of talks about things. Dr. McCullough has his book, which is The Truth About COVID-19. He gets into quite a bit of detail on what's happening, and so if you're not, kind of like doctor oriented, sometimes it can get a little bit tedious, but he still offers lots of food for thought on that one. This was a good documentary. It was CR for COVID. It was kind of, was put out, 2021. So it was one of those that they didn't want to get censored, so they made sure the name was good. I'm trying to think of who this was by, but they basically interview a lot of the different doctors that were involved at first, really talking about what's going on. And so you've got Zach Bush, you've got Judy Malkovich in here, you've got Tom O'Brien is in here, Dale Bigtree, Christine Northrup, Andrew Wakefield, and then you have some of it, like Thomas Cohen and also Andrew Kaufman. So a lot of good speakers that kind of talk about what's going on. And I do believe he was the one that just produced another one. I think it's done by the same author, and that was by Jonathan Otto, and he just did The Unbreakable, and that was pretty profound. So I've ordered that, but all I have is a sheet of paper. I just got information today with shipping. So, but I've watched it and had a lot of good information about that. Some others that were out there is Watch the Water. That's a very interesting documentary. And there are several others that kind of go a little bit deeper. I guess I'll mention this one. This one, Pandemic, which is by Mickey Willis. And what's interesting is that he had a different perspective, is that he really had to change his perspective because it wasn't what he was expecting. So it's kind of interesting to watch his shift because in this book, he talks about that. And he has a new one coming out, I think, like a week or so, Pandemic 3. So it's gonna be interesting. So, so we've all, and I think the hard part is we've all been silenced, we've all been censored, not allowed to talk about it. And it's just hard because there's so much information we want to share and want to help. And we just kind of feel that we're not supposed to, or we can't, like that. And what happens is that shuts down your third chakra, which is in your throat, which is your thyroid. And so when you're not allowed to speak and talk and share, that shuts down your voice. Well, remember, that's where I said you've got a lot of throat closing and anaphylactic, is like that. So it's really important to get that out. And so having a group of people you can talk with, having journaling about it, that's really important. And so that's why I kind of said, if you're wanting to talk a little bit more about what you've experienced and what you're dealing with, or if there's a way to move forward, I'm offering that if you want to sign up for a 15-minute free, virtual tea with me, and you set that up while we're on our, in other words, just email me at jody@quantumtechniques.com. We can set that up as a time that we can kind of talk and share. And but I'm offering that during the time of this call or this Zoom. So we don't have to do it during the Zoom. We just need to set up before the end of the call. Okay. So the goal is, what is happening in your, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, okay, there's all these theories out there, and we've tried to say, okay, instead of finding the exact one, say, okay, I want to know what everybody's perspective is and see what resonates for the people I'm working with. Because the goal is to bring whoever's body that we're working with back into balance, whether that's organs, tissue, glands. We want to bring that back to what its balance is. And so there is a fine line between a belief and, I don't want to say reality, but in other words, if like I have a friend that really thinks, shedding is an issue. And sometimes I get that and sometimes I don't. So it kind of depends on the person that believes in the shedding. And so we just have to be kind of aware that our belief systems sometimes drive what the body sees or reveals. And so I try to be as impartial as possible, but be aware of what's out there. So that's kind of, like I said, a fine line there. All right, so example number 3, and this one I think is interesting. This is from a doctor that he used to work at the Mayo Clinic, and he decided a couple years ago, probably more than 5 now, that their direction and his direction were going different. And so he wanted to do a little bit more alternative stuff. And so he joined with the Bredesen protocol, which is a very interesting protocol for people with Alzheimer's. And he wrote the book, The Ends of Alzheimer's. And so he has that protocol as part of his practice. But he looks at genetics. He looks at, because he's a doctor, he can look at all the genetics and test things and kind of get a bigger, broader perspective. But he still has that kind of a scientific mind. So anyway, he's, because my mom has Alzheimer's, we have used him as a doctor. And so he sent that thing way at the beginning of COVID, what he was seeing, and now he's sending out kind of another one about long haul COVID. So I thought it was very interesting. So it gets a little bit technical, but just bear with me. So he says this is what his summary is. COVID attacks the ACE2 receptors on the blood vessels, and they can lead to a cardiac or a cardiovascular event. The ACE2 related tissue can cause inflammation. Proteins are leaking into the bloodstream and they cause autoimmune response. Now, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of what autoimmunity is. Autoimmunity is when there's a substance in the body that goes into the tissue. Sometimes it gets so enmeshed that the body can't tell what's the tissue and what the substance is that it's trying to get rid of. And so that enmeshment, the body doesn't know what to do with that, so he fights the whole thing. And that's what autoimmunity is, because your body mounting a response against whatever that is that it knows it's foreign, it just can't figure out what that is. And I do have to say that from probably about April 15th of 2020, most alternative people were really concerned about autoimmunity. And what was going to happen in society with what we've done. The MNR, causes long COVID due to ghost cells that stay in the bloodstream and display the spike protein targets and triggers immune response. So that's kind of what I was just explaining. And what that kind of develops is blood clots. Fatalities have occurred around day 21 of COVID. COVID conveys a 6-fold increased risk of cardiovascular event, heart attack, stroke, blood clots in the legs, and also in the lungs. And like I said, this is somewhat like his research. Says more women than men get long haul COVID. Younger people seem to get more than older individuals. Now, I found that interesting because I have personally not found that. I have found, but I think the caveat is here is he's working, like I said, with Alzheimer's. So he's working with that geriatric group that's way older. Well, I'm working with pretty much people from, I'd say, 30s to 60s, and I have seen a lot of COVID. So I think what he's saying when he says younger is he's saying that group, not the geriatric that he typically is working with. But he doesn't give a age group on that. And then he says that long haul COVID seems to be in 7.5% of the US population. And I feel like there's been more. Now we're taking a sample of people that call us anyway because of illness. And so, what we found is it just can be kind of skewed. So his symptoms that he's found with his patients with COVID is loss of smell, sneezing, shortness of breath, brain fog, anxiety, hair loss, ejaculation problems, chest pain, rashes, depression, fatigue, decreased libido, cognitive decline, cough, and insomnia. And so, we've noticed quite a few of those same symptoms. So I think that's interesting that, what he's seen, what Steve's seen, what I've seen, they are kind of matching up. So long haul COVID, he says 80% of patients have pain, fatigue, and rash. And I have noticed, quite a bit of, like rash on the neck again. 14.2% of patients have mental health and cognitive symptoms like anxiety, depression, insomnia, brain fog, and cognitive decline. And that's one thing that I think is huge that I really want to get across to people is that after Omicron, it seemed to really go after that neurotransmitter, brain blood barrier, and cause a lot of depression. And I have people call me, I've never been this depressed before. I don't know what's wrong with me. And it's like, okay, it's not you, it's whatever this is going after that. And so really just affirming to people that you're gonna be okay and we're gonna work through this and really get rid of this. And so I just think that's really important to let people know. 5.8% of patients have lung symptoms. And this is something that Steve has said a lot, is that he really doesn't see it very often in the lungs. And so these numbers kind of indicate that. Every once in a while you'll have it in a cough, and it's a tickle, but not, really deep tissue. So some of the other things are persistent infection, autoimmune, neuroinflammation, which is brain fog, cognitive ability, and depression, blood clots, and microclots, which are called D-dimers. And it's something that doctors do where they can do a test. And I used to be in construction, and so as a family profession, and so when you want to test your, let's say you're putting in a new furnace, you want to make sure that the gas line is completely strong. You fill the pipes and you have a clamp on one end, and you have a pressure gauge, and if that gauge goes down, you've got a leak someplace or there's a fitting that's not quite right. And so a D-dimer is kind of like that. They're testing to see what the pressure is in the line of your arteries. And if there's any decrease in that, they know that there's a buildup on the outside that are micro clots that are blocking that. And so I think that's really interesting that that's one of the things that they can tell is going on, and it helps them know whether they need to go farther and look into clots itself. So the strategies for long haul are not yet standardized. And so that's why, you know, all the health professionals, you know, and alternative people are kind of like, okay, what do we do here? You know, what are we trying to figure out what's the best way? So there's an overall inflammation burden on the body. And so that's what we're trying to solve, is how to get rid of the internal inflammation. So you can support the body by balancing the immune function by vitamins and herbs. You can suppress neuroinflammatory through herbs and supplement treatments that cross the blood-brain barrier, and provide emotional, you know, support. And those are really, you know, as a doctor, those are the only things that he is aware of what to do. So, you know, they're figuring it out just the same time we're figuring it out. Okay, so that was example number 3. So again, if you have questions about what we went over, you know, and if you want to set up a 15-minute talk, just let me know and email me by the end of our Zoom today, and that way we can kind of set that up and feel it would be good for both you and me to do that. So that's just a 15-minute pre-call, because I just want you to be able to talk about it, you know, and kind of get know what we do and how that can help you. So you can send me an email at jody@quantumtechniques.com. So what do we do? Now that we kind of know that those are the symptoms, the key is to reconnect the body. Okay, so at QT, we have a 7-step process that takes about 60 minutes. And so if you sign up for a session by Friday at 5 o'clock Central Time, then I'm going to give a $100 discount off of my normal fee of $400 to do that session. And so you can sign up by, you have to sign up by filling up 2 forms. And one is the client session form saying, I want to do a session. And the other one is your history. It's really important that I know, you know, what you've dealt with, what you eat, you know, what you've experienced, because you can see that, like I talked about, that though long haul COVID kind of re-expresses some of those old diseases that you worked on. So we need to know kind of what that history is, so we can figure out what that is and how to help that. And so I can type in the chat here if I can. Yeah, no. Hold on. There we go. Okay. So I can type in the chat how to fill out that request. So I should have had probably that up and loaded, but I should be able to get to it here real quick. Go. Just this. Okay, so they're in the so that's the website to set up for the session request and also the client history, so that we can do a session together. So Joanna's asking if we're going to give any codes today. If you are wanting to have codes, yes, you can send me. It's easier for you to send me an email at jody@quantumtechniques.com, and that way I can send you that code right back. And so we have, let's see, how we have 5 or 6 codes now for COVID. We have the original COVID, we have hydrochloroquine, we have ivermectin, we have NAC, we have the shedding, we have the snake venom, and then we have a code for oil of oregano and a special supplement. So we have 7 codes that we have found to be very helpful. And I read those every morning for my entire family as I brush my teeth. So I'm with my electric toothbrush, I'm like thinking of everybody, and I'm saying those codes for everybody. It's the easy way to do it. So what I'm going to be sharing, which is part of, you know, the big hour treatment that I do, is just the tip of the iceberg but it's an example of what we do that helps the body bring it back into balance, like I talked about. And someone is asking, are those codes on the QT website? And they are not. So what we do is, the first thing that we do is we identify what is the key organ, gland, and tissue that you are dealing with. Okay, so is it, you know, your heart, your lungs, your adrenals, you know, the throat with the anaphylactic, is the mucosal lining, you know, what is that, the key organ that is having such an issue? So that's the first key. The second key is we find out which brain engine is involved. Okay, so we have, you know, medulla oblongata, we have cell memory, amygdala, hippocampus, we have motor. I got to remember all of them. We have the pons, we have the cerebellum, we have the heart, we have the neurological, we have the limbic, we have the thyroid, the mucosal lining, the connective tissue, and then the base of the spine. And then we have a other one, which is we call it softening, but it's like almost like the body, recognizing the body that we love you is the best way to put that. So it's another key. And so we have all those. And so we find out which one of those has been impacted the most. Okay. And then the third thing we do, and it could be more than one. So just be aware of that. And then the third thing we do is we have cortical contacts. So we have limbic, frontal, limbic and frontal, prefrontal, motor, premotor, association, sensory, cerebellum, eye tracking, visual memory. We have eyes, ears, cell memory, primary vision, and visual memory. And so those are others that control different aspects of the body and how they connect. So once we've found the key of all three of those, then we reconnect them. And so we reconnect them by tapping either side of our hemisphere. So that's just a one little way that we are helping reconnect the body to get back to its own balance, its own healing intelligence, so that it knows how to kind of rewrite the ship. All right. So obviously with the quantum techniques actual treatment, it goes in way more depth. But I wanted to share that part because I think this is something that each one of you could do to be able to help your body get back in balance. So if you're wanting that, I have those charts that I just mentioned. And then I also have a video that kind of explains how to reconnect them. And so if you're wanting that, you can send me an email again at jody@quantumtechniques.com, and I can send you, we have the 3 charts and then the video that kind of connects that. So that's something I can send you. Okay. Like I said, this is just, you know, like one little aspect of what we do of the 7-part process. And so if you're wanting that, then you can set up to do a 1-hour session. And if you sign up by Friday at 5 o'clock Central Time with the 2 parts, which is the client session and then also the client history, then I will give you the $100 discount on doing the session. So it'd be $300. So our intent is we want to get the body back into balance and to have your life have clarity, have energy, and live in peace. And, you know, with all those symptoms we just talked about, sometimes that's gets a little bit hard. So that's our goal. So I wanted to open up for questions and see if you guys had any others. You can certainly put it in chat, or you can kind of raise your hand and I can take you off mute. Or if you know how to do, I think you can do mute yourself, but I may have to do it also. So if you have any questions, that'd be great. So Joanne, you have a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was given the code for COVID, I think the first one you had, and along with it was given a code for strengthening the liver.
Okay.
And strengthening the kidneys. I'm wondering if I've since found out that I have fatty liver, and I'm wondering if that strengthening the liver code would help with that, or if there's something better for that.
Okay, so when we do the liver codes, there's 5 different codes as part of that. And I do get muscle testing wise that those codes will be significantly helpful for you. Yeah. So
Okay, so I was only given 1 code, so I don't know what the others.
okay. So yeah, why don't you send me an email at jody@quantumtechniques.com, and I
Okay.
can send you the 5 codes. And one is for making sure the liver is in detox mode. Then we're making sure phase 1 of the liver is working, phase 2 of the liver is working. Emotions, because the liver holds all that anger and frustration. So we make sure that we've cleared all those emotions out of the liver.
Yeah.
And then when you do that, sometimes you can get more angry. And so we have a softening so that the body goes, oh, okay, I can handle this. I can move it on through. So I usually have people read those 5 codes, 4 of them, each one of those 4 times once a day. And this is like one of my favorite things, because my husband used to come home from the construction job sites and be really angry and frustrated, and he wouldn't talk and stuff like that. And so I'd like release all these codes into him. Within 30 seconds, he's like, okay, well, let's have a discussion. And I was like, oh, my bear is not a bear anymore. He's normal. They really do work.
Yeah, I also just wanted to say thank you to you and to Steve, because you guys have been offering, I know Steve at least was offering to test people for free if they thought they had COVID. And you guys have put out at least 1 COVID code. I don't know if there's more since the one I got, but you've really been on top of this and have been willing to help people, you know, and not just the people who are your clients. And I'm really grateful to you for that.
Yeah, we really have. I mean, at first, when it first started, it's like, okay, let's not go down the fear road. Let's, draw together and know that, there's an answer out there. We just have to figure out what it is. And so, yeah, I wanted to produce a community, but then I made it so hard that it was really hard to even not be able to talk about it, because I didn't want to be shut down, so I couldn't help other people. And that was a really, really hard emotional debate, because I wanted to get the information out there, but they just weren't allowing it, and I just wasn't willing to and I'm not a fighter either. I leave that to other people like Dale Brinktree that can fight, and that's just not my personality. I mean, God, I said, if you gave me this, but I'm not going to fight. So I just, and I think what I was led to in the very end is realizing that I do better in wherever people's journey is, to just reach out and hold their hand and say, hey, let's take you from where you're at now and move you forward. And that matched me so much better with my energy and where I want people. And so, I'm willing to have all the conversations, because I've spent 600 hours learning it. But if you don't know any of it, and now you just want to say, hey, I just need help, great, we'll go from there, and it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't matter what's happened. It's just what we want to get you back in balance. That's most important. So I'm great. I'm glad that we were able to help you, for sure. All right. Does anybody else have a question? All right. So again, if you're wanting the free gift of wanting to talk one-on-one with me for 15 minutes, you can just send me an email by 9 o'clock tonight, so that we can get that set up and see if what the quantum techniques and what we do, if that will help you. Okay, and then I can also send you the QT codes, so that I think there's, like I said, there's 7 codes now. If you're also wanting the liver codes, I can certainly send that to you too. And then also the video about how to reconnect in the charts. So when you send me an email, let me know what you're wanting. And again, that's jody@quantumtechniques.com. So So I think the thing that I also have, the ways to continue to connect. Our intent for next month is to have Steve talk about his what he's been studying, which is the mast cell activation and the histamine response that we're finding in the body. Okay, and so that's part of that autoimmune issue that we're trying to discover and figure out how to unmesh the body with that. But the way that we can connect is I have a Facebook group, which is Health Puzzle Academy. And so I share a lot of information in there about how to work on your health and things like that. So I'd love to connect with you there. So it's a group, so you join, and I'd let you to the group and we can have discussions. Okay. Another one is I have a YouTube channel, and it's and so that's Jody Colegrove. And I think it's at Quantum Techniques, but it's a YouTube account. So I have a lot of YouTube videos in there that about different health issues. And sometimes it's as simple as, how to have a more natural way to get stains out of your clothes, but that way you're not, really having, bad stains, and you're not using all the chemicals that's going to impact your health. So there's lots of different videos on there. So my goal, as we talked about, is I desperately want you to discover what that root cause of your health problem is, and for you to get clarity, to be energized, and to live in peace. And so the best way that I know how to do that is to do that Quantum Techniques session, which is 60 minutes with me. And if you sign up by Friday at 5 p.m. Central Time, you get the $100 discount. And you don't have to be a new QT client. You can be, one that you've, used before. We're just wanting to, help you with what you're working on. And again, if you want to talk with me about this modality, and if it's best for you, we can set up a virtual 15-minute TEED talk. And I want to get to know you and how I can help you. And so that offer ends, with this Zoom. So you can send me an email at jody@quantumtechniques.com. So if anybody else has any other questions, just wanted to see if we have anything here. So I look forward to seeing you next month, and I appreciate you attending today. And I just hope that you continue to have health and happiness. All right, guys. Well, thank you. And I'm glad you were able to come in tonight. It's so nice to see your shining smiles. All right. Well, blessings, guys.